Hi everyone, this is Jim of Shiloh Kahal, and I want to revisit Genesis, the first day of creation, in chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. In the King James, it reads this way: In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, Let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So I want to take this passage and I want to break it down for us here. And to do so, I've created some visuals that I hope will help illustrate what I'm trying to say. So let's start with the beginning. At first, and prior to day one, we are told that darkness was on the face of the deep. Okay, so that's what I've illustrated here. Darkness is on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So apparently, this is the way it was, and then he decided, as he began to prepare to do something, his Spirit moved upon the face of the waters. Um, I'm gonna be visiting this passage in the Hebrew here in a minute, but the deep would really represent the abyss, which would be the deep waters, just the sum of the deep waters. And that's what existed. And then the darkness was over the deep. So we had lots of water and darkness on top of it. And then his Spirit hovered over those waters. And then he said, Let there be light. And there was. And he saw the light that it was good. And then he divided the light from the darkness. Okay. So, and then let me finish here. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So what did he do? So here's the way it was before he started, and then his Spirit hovered, and then he created the light. He said, "Let there be light," and suddenly there was light. And then he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So in this first illustration, which I am labeling option one here, I've taken the darkness that existed and I've put light, this blue color here, I've inserted as day. So here, let me do this. This would be day, and this would be night. Sorry, I'm writing with my mouse. Okay, so if you just take the order, darkness existed, and then he said, let there be light. It would make sense to place then the light to the right because the darkness existed, and then he said, let there be light. So that's option one that I'm illustrating. But I'm also illustrating an option two where we would be placing the light on the left and the day on the left and the night on the right. And really what we're looking for, what we've established so far is we have two components of the day. We definitely have a night, because we started with, well, actually, we didn't have night. We had darkness. But then when he created light and called it day, then he called darkness night. So on that first day, he created at least two components to this point of a day, night and day. Now, there are so many arguments because once we've established what the components are, now we need to talk about sequence. And there are many people who say because darkness was first, darkness in the sequence of a day. And let me back up a second. Let me make sure it's clear here, because in this illustration, this would be the beginning on this side, and we would be moving on a day to the right. So the course of the day would start here, and then on a timeline would run across to here. So the sequence in option one here would be night first and day second in a sequence, assuming there must be a sequence, but it seems reasonable and logical that there should be a sequence. Although he doesn't say there's a sequence, but that's still what's driving us, and experientially we know there is a sequence. But there is an option to that. And let me also say that many will say that, again, just to reiterate, that because darkness started, we started with darkness, it should come first, and day should then follow. But let me also say that in the context up here, when he created light, when he called the light day and the darkness night. So there are some folks who are saying that because he had darkness first and then created day, that it should sequentially be that way. And then they'll point to things that are indicators of that sequence. But let me also just offer up another potential indicator of sequence, because he first called the light day and the darkness night. So even though darkness existed before the light, darkness before, which means that night existed before day, when he calls them something, he calls the light day and the darkness night. So is that sequential? Does it have any meaning towards sequence? I really don't know. It doesn't matter. But here's option one, where the night precedes the day. And here's an option two, which is the same passage. But here's an option two where the day precedes the night, because he called the light day and the night darkness. So I concede that really from the passage, we cannot determine explicitly what the sequence is. We're going to have to infer. Then he goes on to say that there was evening, and the evening, and in the King James it reads, and the evening and the morning were the first day. That's how it reads in the King James. Now, I have also placed in here, right underneath the King James, because I'm getting ready to introduce the evening and the morning here in the illustrations below. But I've also put in here the English Standard Version, just because it reads something I think closer to the Hebrew, where it reads, and there was evening and there was morning. So let me illustrate the idea of inserting an evening and the morning on the first day. And here's the first, well, let me go ahead and pull it up and just show you both options. Here's the first option. And in the first option, I am placing night first to go along with the first option I showed up here, this one. Okay, so night is first and day second in this illustration. Okay, so we're not told, all we're told is, and there was evening and there was morning, or and the evening and morning were the first day, whatever way you want to present it. So we really aren't told much about evenings and mornings. We're left to infer, because there's nothing really terribly explicit about it. But experientially, we know that they tend to divide the night and day. It seems good that both of them would be divisors of the, it just seems good that each of them would serve to divide night from day. So if we're going to go with night first, then evening would precede morning. Well, first of all, evening would precede night, and evening would precede morning, which I'm going to also define here, because I've done this in other passages. But evening and morning they have so much brought into their definitions. There's so much colloquial meaning. There's idiomatic meaning. There's just lots of meaning. So let me just say that evening is not defined here. So we don't know. We're going to have to infer. But experientially, we know that the sun goes down, and when it goes down, we have at least 3 periods of what they call twilight. We have the civil twilight, then we have the nautical twilight, and then we have the astronomical twilight, and then we have dusk, which is, the last vestiges of, sorry, that's terrible. The last vestiges of sunlight in the sky. That's what we experience. Well, the sun setting, I think it would be the legitimate, as you reason things through, although we're not explicitly told, but the sun setting, if this is the beginning of the day sequentially, the sun setting would represent the first part of the day. But the evening is actually synonymous with the twilight period, in my opinion. And it's not just a moment in time. The evening is this entire process. And we have evidences throughout scriptures to kind of suggest that, although, again, we're left to infer. And all of us are going to have to decide what evidences are the most compelling evidences as to what we're inferring. So the evening would be this twilight period after the sunset. If we come over here to the morning, well, let me say that I think morning is synonymous with dawn. And it's synonymous, I'm not going to try to write daybreak, but well, here I am trying it anyway. This would be daybreak. So it's synonymous with dawn and daybreak. And it is the twilight period as the sun is reapproaching, and it occurs as the sun is approaching the horizon again, and we start getting some sunlight entering the sky. And the dawn or daybreak begins as soon as sunlight begins to appear in the sky. And we have this period of time. First, we have the um, astronomical twilight, then we have the nautical twilight, then we have the civil twilight, and then the sun rises. Now, in a morning, in the sunrise to sunrise day, this would be the beginning. This crossing the horizon and the sun appearing on the horizon would be the beginning of the day. But I think we have this, I think it's reasonable, although I'm inferring it's reasonable that morning is synonymous with dawn and daybreak. It starts when sunlight begins to enter the sky and continues until the sun rises, at which time we start the new day. Now, colloquially, we keep using morning all the time because, if this sunrise happens around 6 a.m., well, we keep calling the rest of that, until 11:59 a.m., we keep calling the rest of that morning. Well, why are we doing that? We're doing that because that's what we do in the Greco-Roman calendar scenario, and in practice, colloquially, just what we do in our cultures. We keep calling it morning. But is it literally morning in the context of what we're dealing with here? And there was evening and there was morning? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it more realistic that we have this period of time that exists between the night and the day. And here's option two. Here's option two for the same thing. The same passages, just option two, where day comes first, and then we have the sun setting down here, and we have evening. Sorry. Here, these periods of evening. Then we have dusk, and then we have night. And then here we come with the sun approaching, and we begin to get, excuse me, I have to move this. We begin to get sunlight appearing in the sky. First, we have dawn here. Dawn approaching, astronomical dawn, as the light first appears in the sky. Then we have astronomical twilight, nautical twilight, then civil twilight, and the sun ends up breaking the sky, and we enter a new day. Now, admittedly, we have no evidences, no explicit instructions. It is possible that either of these scenarios could be correct. Possible. It's possible. So, and I really don't know, but we'd have to infer. Now, I would say that from here we begin to, as you and I are going to have to make our determinations in this passage and the other passages that are suggestive of how a sequence of a day goes, we're going to have to just determine what we're talking about, what we're hearing, which one represents the most compelling evidence. Now, I would say that it seems to me that option two down here would be more compelling than option three. First of all, I think it's reasonable to infer either way. And let me also say here that when we introduce the evening and the morning, we've introduced two more components of a day. So now we're up to four components of a day, which would be night. Well, we have evening, night, morning, and day. Or day, evening, night, day, morning. Actually, this is morning, isn't it? Okay, let me go ahead and mark it. Sorry, terrible. Okay, so we have four components of the day, and we have no explicit instructions as to which one sequentially comes first. But if we come back up to this passage and really every other passage, we have activity beginning each day. In day two, he's going to make the firmament. In day three, he's going to separate land from the water, and we're going to get some of the plants appearing. And then day four, he begins creating the sea creatures and the birds. And so each day he starts the day with a mass of activity. Now, this is just inferring. This is just my opinion. You all will have to make your own assessments. But he starts off with activity. And when he finishes the activity of each day, then he says, and there was evening, and there was morning the first day, or some variant of that. So it's here's the I'm just going to finish inferring here. Here's the activity that takes place. So this would be the first thing that he does, and then we have evening, and then he doesn't mention night, but then we have morning. And morning, if it's going to be, let me also say, it is also possible because there are some people who are saying that evening and morning, especially in the King James Version, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So they actually make this entire nighttime, this entire period from the evening through the night to be the first part of the day. And then we have the morning through the day to be the second part of the day. So we have two components, component one and component two. And this encompasses the night and this encompasses the morning. I suppose so. It's a possibility. You'll all have to decide if that's what really makes sense. I think it makes sense to have four components, the day, night, evening, morning. And in these sequences, morning is the very last thing. So if it's four components, then that is suggestive of the morning being here at the end of night, being the last component of the day. If we just have two components of the day, an evening that encompasses night and then the morning that encompasses the day, okay, we would have evening and then we'd have morning, which would be and then be the entire day. Let me go visit this passage in the Hebrew. So here we are at Genesis 1:1, but there's really nothing in there noteworthy in the Hebrew, in my opinion. Let me go to verse 2. I don't really think there's anything in here I would like to discuss other than I would say that this word for the deep is really the abyss, which is kind of interesting, but not germane to what we're discussing today. And there are plenty of words in the Hebrew passages, the transliterated words where people are studying out yom and some of the other words that are being used here, and or, and I'll let them do that. That's not my point of the video here. But here, when I reach verse 1:3, and where it reads, and there came to be light. So he said, "Let there be light," and then there was light. Well, this Hebrew word here, which is translated as, I think it's Yahweh. How is it translated here? Let's go see. Pronounced Haya. So it's pronounced Haya, but it's a word that means to become, came to pass, exist, happen. And so if we go back to the passage, we have, he said, "Let there be light," and there came to pass that there was light. That's the actual definition of this word. And so when we go to Genesis 4, and he saw that the light was good, and he divided it between the light and the darkness. He divided the light and the darkness. Then we go to verse 5, and he says God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And here's what I really want to get to, and that is that the same word is utilized that was utilized when he said, "Let there be light," and then there came to be light. Light came to be. So after he has divided night and day, there came to be, according to this Hebrew word, which is to come to exist. And I'll just go down. I know this Hebrew word looks a little different here from what you see in this word, but it's the same word. It's a different version of it. I've done a little bit of researching down here or looking through. If you come down here to be, you'll see that that word here, which is what we saw in that passage, is translated as "it came to pass." And that's a reasonable translation of it. And so the point of this is that the Hebrew is saying, "And there came to pass evening, and there came to pass morning." So basically, when the King James says, "and the evening and the morning," let me get there, "and the evening and the morning were the first day," it really leads one to receive it in a certain way, when in truth, the ESV and some of the other versions that are translating it a little bit differently, where it says, "and there was evening and there was morning, the first day," is a little closer. But the translations that are translating it as, hang on, let me get it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut that off. But so I just ran off. I went and got the Yah scriptures out, which is the same as the Hallelujah scriptures. And it reads, instead of saying, and it came, and evening and morning were day one, like the King James says, or even, and how does it read in the ESV? It reads, um, and there was evening and there was morning. The Yah scriptures or the Hallelujah scriptures read, and there came to be evening and there came to be morning, day one. So if you were reading the Hallelujah scriptures, you would see that he created, darkness was on the face of the deep. He said, let light come to be, and light came to be. And he saw that the light was good, and Elohim separated light from the darkness, and he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, day one. And that also might lead one to understand that the mixing of light and darkness is what creates the twilight periods. The first twilight period that separates day from night is evening, and the second twilight period that separates night from day is morning. And that came to be as a natural, I mean, it could be a creation. Well, it is a creation. Obviously, it's part of the creation, but it might also be a natural consequence to the creation of light and its intermingling with darkness. So, and that might be why it reads this way, that there came to be evening and there came to be morning. If you were to take that theory a little bit further, is when we get into the other days, creation day events, he works through the day and there's day, and then he says there is evening first, because we would see the mixing of the daylight into the night, which is the twilight period between day and night that separates day from night. And sequentially, that's what we experience every day. We have a day, then we have a night, or I'm sorry, we have a day, and then we have an evening, and then we have a night. And morning would follow that as the light is getting ready to enter again, and we have the mixing of the light once again in the morning, and it could be just a natural consequence. And also morning sequentially follows the darkness and precedes the day. So it's the separation between the darkness and the day, where evening is the separation between the day and the darkness. And if morning is last, and if it's that twilight period, the last part of each day, then it is the mixing of light as we're moving from night to day. I'm just reasoning, and you all can do with this as you deem necessary. And this, along with this, in concert with pretty much the other things that I've been sharing, other information, other evidences that day precedes night in each day's events, and so then sunrise is the start of the day. And there are many, many evidences for it, and so I find it the most compelling argument, and that's why I embrace it. Although I concede that there are possibilities up here where we have night first and then day. Possibilities, but they're not probabilities. I think it's too hard to make it all work. And well, anyway, if you think I'm onto something, and if you think the information I'm sharing is reasonably correct and something to share, then please like and share so that others can hear too. Well, thank you, and may you be Baruch.